Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sarah.
Your omelet is, your waffle is.
I know it is, Fritz.
Others, and welcome anybody who would love to join us. I want to thank you all for being here today and extend a special welcome to any visitors here. If you want to visit the welcome table in the fireside room, that's the room you just came from, sign our virtual guest book. You can't do that right now on our
Sure that.
And whether you're joining us from home or here in the fellowship hall, we invite you to stay after the service for coffee fellowship, where you can introduce yourself and join in conversation with kindred spirits. Our website is not working right now, but if you go to uufames.com, you will get a message that says, join us for Sunday services at 10 a.m. in person or online. And if you go online, obviously people who are here online can join there. And then there's a place where you can hit the newsletter archive and find the latest newsletter. So I have a few announcements this morning. The Fellowship Voices is meeting right after the service for practice upstairs in the room with the piano. I can't remember what it's called, Beatrix Potter. So yeah, if you like to sing, come join them. And in January of this year, we held a roundtable discussion that shared our celebrations about and hopes for our building here. And it raised the importance of the building committee in the life and the future of the fellowship. So we're planning a committee kickoff meeting this Thursday, September 7th at 6:30 in room 3 and on Zoom. I will repeat that. A kickoff meeting this Thursday, September 7th at 6:30 in room 3 and on Zoom. And any engineers or engineering students are welcome as well. And if you haven't been contacted, please contact Jeff White, the board liaison, or Bradley in the office. And now, a very important announcement. We need you, all of you, to take some time in your busy lives to complete the congregational survey issued by the search committee in Friday's weekly email. The survey will measure what you value, what you believe, demographics, and more. A minimum response of 60% of our congregation is required for results to be used in our search process. So please see your latest weekly email and complete the survey by September 15th. And what's the date today? September 3rd. So you have until the 15th or sooner to complete it. And how do you find the survey? Weekly newsletter. Oh, and look at here. There's a QR code. For those of you who don't know what that little, that's called a QR code, and you scan it and it'll bring you to there. And where we are so far. Oops. This is where we are so far. And so we're down here. We need to be up here. And so that's something you can do during coffee hour. Get on your phone. Get it done. All right. Who's going to do it? Yeah. Wait, I want to see all the hands. All right. You want to minister? Fill out the survey. And I'll leave that there just to remind you. And if you haven't done it, help the guild to motivate you. So on behalf of this caring, nurturing congregation, I welcome each and every one of you into this sacred space. Here, we invite you into an experience of transformation, hope, renewal, and connections, which may inspire you to understand life in new ways. Thank you for joining us today.
Ode to the Chalice by Matt Ferris. We light this chalice, an ancient lamp in honor of the mysteries. Its two overarching circles are modern roots: universalism, liberation for everyone; Unitarianism, one divinity accessible to all. Its pedestal, the stable foundation of our evolving beloved community. Its fire, its light, the divine spark animating all of us. Vitality in all things. We light this chalice, the shared communion of our collective lights brought together in this sacred assembly, this time of we becoming.
The world has the driven, let us be drawn in. Let your love be a given, let us be drawn in. To imagine, to dream, to create, to redeem, for the sake of the living, let us be drawn in.
Like to invite any children here this morning down to the blue carpet, and you can just stretch out, and we have a video for you, the 3 questions that was written and illustrated by John Muth and based on a story by Leo Tolstoy. And when you get back to your seats, you can ask your parents, who was Leo Tolstoy?
The 3 questions are based on a story by Leo Tolstoy, written and illustrated by John Muth. There once was a boy named Nikolai who sometimes felt uncertain about the right way to act. I want to be a good person, he told his friends, but I don't always know the best way to do that. Nikolai's friends understood and they wanted to help him. If only I could find the answers to my 3 questions, Nikolai continued, then I would always know what to do. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Nikolai's friends considered his first question. Then Sonia the heron spoke. To know the best time to do things, one must plan in advance, she said. Goggle the monkey, who had been rooting through some leaves to find something good to eat, said, you will know when to do things if you watch and pay close attention. Then Pushkin the dog, who was just dozing off, rolled over and said, you can't pay attention to everything yourself. You need a pack to keep watch and help you decide when to do things. For example, Goggle, a coconut is about to fall on your head. Nikolai thought for a moment, and then he asked his second question. Who is the most important one? Those who are close to heaven, said Sonia, circling up into the sky. Those who know how to heal, said Goggle, stroking his bruised noggin. Those who make the rules, growled Pushkin. Nikolai thought some more. Then he asked the third question. What is the right thing to do? Flying, said Sonia. Having fun all the time, laughed Goggle. Fighting, barked Pushkin right away. Then the boy thought for a long time. He loved his friends. He knew they were all trying to, but their answers didn't seem quite right. An idea came to him. I know, he thought. I will ask Leo the turtle. He has lived a very long time. Surely he will know the answers I am looking for. Nikolai hiked high up into the mountains where the old turtle lived all alone. When Nikolai arrived, he found Leo digging a garden. The turtle was old and digging was hard for him. I have 3 questions and I came to ask your help, Nikolai said. When is the best time to do things? Who is the most important one? What is the right thing to do? Leo listened carefully, but he only smiled. And then he went on with his digging. You must be tired, Nikolai said at last. Let me help you. The turtle gave him his shovel and thanked him. And because it was easier for a young boy to dig than it was for an old turtle, Nikolai kept digging until the rows were finished. But just as he finished, the wind blew wildly and rain burst from darkened clouds. As they moved toward the cottage for shelter, Nikolai suddenly heard a cry for help. Walking down the path, he found a panda whose leg had been injured by a fallen tree. Carefully, Nikolai carried her into Leo's house and made a splint for her leg with a stick of bamboo. The storm raged on, banging at the doors and windows. The panda woke up. Where am I? She said. And where is my child? The boy ran out of the cottage and down the path. The roar of the storm was deafening. Pushing against the howling wind and drenching rain, he ran farther into the forest. There he found the panda's child, cold and shivering on the ground. The little panda was wet and scared, but alive. Nikolai carried her inside and made her warm and dry. Then he laid her in her mother's arms. Leo smiled when he saw what the boy had done. The next morning the sun was warm, birds sang, and all was well with the world. The panda's leg was healing nicely, and she thanked Nikolai for saving her and her baby from the storm. At that moment, Sonia, Goggle, and Pushkin arrived to make sure everyone was all right. Nikolai felt great peace within himself. He had wonderful friends, and he had saved the panda and her child. But he also felt disappointed. He still had not found the answers to his 3 questions. So he asked Leo one more time. The old turtle looked at the boy. But your questions have been answered, he said. They have? Asked the boy. Yesterday, if you had not stayed to help me dig my garden, you wouldn't have heard the panda's cries for help in the storm. Therefore, the most important time was the time you spent digging the garden. The most important one at that moment was me, and the most important thing to do was to help me with my garden. Later, when you found the injured panda, the most important time was the time you spent mending her leg and saving her child. The most important ones were the panda and her baby, and the most important thing to do was to take care of them and make them safe. Remember then that there is only one important time, and that time is now. The most important one is always the one you are with. And the most important thing is to do good for the one who is standing at your side. For these, my dear boy, are the answers to what is most important in this world. This is why we are here. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I enjoyed reading it to you. Thanks for coming and
Ours is a welcoming community where we find connections, a spiritual community where we find meaning, a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. It's a tradition here in this community to take a moment to share our joys and sorrows and acknowledge the mutual support of our community. It is a time for sharing, and if you'd like, you can, those in the fellowship hall can step up to the microphone and state your name, share your joy or sorrow, and I will light a milestone candle for you. I'll light one last candle for those milestones left unspoken. And remembering those that have been lit, those names who were mentioned, let's hold all these milestones gently in our hearts. May we remember them, and we'll have a moment of silence. It's good to be together.
Hi. Good morning. I'm Sue. Our first reading this morning is from a book titled The Art of Blessing the Day, Poems with a Jewish Theme by Marge Piercy. I'll be reading the title poem, which is an interpretation of Jewish ritual. It has kind of an unfamiliar accent to us, but I find very appealing. See what you think. The Art of Blessing the Day. This is the blessing for rain after drought. Come down, wash the air so it shimmers, a perfumed shawl of lavender chiffon. Let the parched leaves suckle and swell. Enter my skin. Wash me for the little chrysalis of sleep, rocked in your plashing. In the morning, the world is peeled to shining. This is the blessing for sun after long rain. Now everything shakes itself free and rises. The trees are bright as pushcart ices. Every last lily opens its satin thighs. The bees dance and roll in pollen, and the cardinal at the top of the pine sings at full throttle, fountaining. This is the blessing for a ripe peach. This is luck made round. Frost can nip the blossom, kill the bee. It can drop a hard green, useless nut. Brown fungus, the burrowing worm that coils and rot, can blemish it, and wind crush it on the ground. Yet this peach fills my mouth with juicy sun. This is the blessing for the first garden tomato. Those green boxes of tasteless acid the store sells in January, those red things with the savor of wet chalk, they mock your fragrant name. How fat and sweet you are, weighing down my palm, warm as the flank of a cow in the sun. You are the savor of summer in a thin red skin. This is the blessing for a political victory. Although I shall not forget that things work in increments and epicycles and sometimes leaps that half the time fall back or down. Let's not relinquish dancing while the music fits into our hips and bounces our heels. We must never forget, pleasure is as real as pain. The blessing for the return of a favorite cat, the blessing for love returned, for friends returned, for money received unexpected, the blessing for the rising of the bread, the sun, the oppressed. I am not sentimental about old men mumbling the Hebrew by rote with no more feeling than one says Gesundheit. But the discipline of blessings is to taste each moment, the bitter, the sour, the sweet, and the salty, and be glad for what does not hurt. The art is in compressing attention in each little and big blossom of the tree of life, to let the tongue sing each fruit, its savor, its aroma, and its use. Attention is love. what we must give children, mothers, fathers, pets, our friends, the news, the woes of others. What we want to change, we curse and then pick up a tool. Bless whatever you can with eyes and hands and tongue. If you can't bless it, get ready to make it new.
Thank you, Sue. Our accompanist today is sick, and so we have recorded music, and I'll ask you to, if you wish, open your hymnals to 188. Come,
Play them. I can.
come, whoever you are.
Yay. Not for this one, you. Oh, this one we all know, we hardly even need that. This is a round, and we could do it that way. So you go over and leave that up high, and I will leave that. And we'll do it twice. I'm second. You're the second. Okay. Here we go.
Serendipity. We'll now give and receive the offering. And please know that this morning, half of the non-pledge offering will be donated to Project Koru. This organization enriches lives through community and the outdoors as a way to move forward beyond cancer. Their goal is to help survivors reclaim and rediscover the best versions of their lives and selves. The other half of the offering will support programs here in our fellowship that make this a community of transformation. We'll pass the basket in Fellowship Hall, and those at home can visit the UU Ames, F Ames site to make your contribution. And if you're visiting today, please know that your presence is gift enough. We have some music from Reggie Greenlaw.
This song is Spirit of Life by Carolyn McDade. Please sing along if you feel like it. Spirit of life, come on me. Sing my heart, all the springs of compassion. Flow in rise in the sea. Giving life the shape of justice. Holy folks, Set me free. Sacred heart, come to me, come to me. One more. The light to me. Sing my heart, all the stirrings of the past. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. In the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. Essayette 19, The Irrepressible, the Gratitudes. No, not everything irrepressible. Delight, a t-shirt I saw that read, "Make it scary to be a racist again." Though truly difficult as this is, I want light shone on the racist too, and the hateful in me too, which is the frightened, little more. I'm actually talking about this amaranth plant I see growing in the thumb-thick cracks in the asphalt beneath a chain link fence with 3 strands of barbed wire strung atop that. Just in case, I guess. It looks like it's escaped from a planting of the stuff in a barrel planter behind the chain link and barbed wire. The plants are lush with green foliage, the part that sometimes called callaloo, and pinkish, conical flowers. Some are perfectly erect, some bow their heads like they're listening, or like they're looking back for someone waiting for them. "Come on," they seem to whisper when the breeze blows through them. Their bodies against a fence, their candles. They're also visited, we can see, since we're very close now, by honeybees, recently added to the endangered species list. So close are we that we can see that each flower, as is so often the case, is actually many flowers. A few bumblebees. Is the name because they bumble? If so, it's a misnomer, given that these things crawl elegantly on flower clusters, reminding me of Philippe Petit of Man on Wire fame. Or more sweetly, more to the point, a baby's hand wrapped around my finger, which right now in my life, there is a child named Ari whose hand wraps around my finger when I put it in her little palm, and she totters across the room, which is one of the delights. My dad was an irrepressible know-it-all, which sometimes could be a delight and sometimes not. And one of his delightful facts was that a bumblebee, misnomer ballerina bee, was an impossibility. Too much mass, too teeny of wings. Once he said it, as one buzzed right by us. "That's impossible," he said, smiling. If you get closer to the amaranth, you'll notice that the light-colored flowers, the reddish, fiery pink sort of fading into lavender, that the flowers are giving way to seeds, of which on every flower And the bees know this, the honey and the ballerinas and the many I can't see. By my estimation, there are a zillion seeds of every flower, I'm saying. Maybe 100 flowers, meaning, check my math here, 100 zillion seeds, meaning, keep your calculators out, 100 zillion future plants, on every one of which have many flowers. How many seeds? Some of which are now in a paper bag in my pocket, thank you very much. This is what I think exponential growth actually means. This is why I study gratitude, or what I mean when I say it, from a crack in the street.
Matt Ferris is a seminary student who's a member of our fellowship, and he's talking us today about why I am a Unitarian Universalist.
Good morning, kindred spirits. I'm coming to you today from Swannanoa, North Carolina, in the ancestral and current lands of the Cherokee people. As you know, I'm an aspiring UU priest or minister. In previous Sunday services, I've offered meditations on the history of Unitarian Universalism. Unitarian Universalist philosophy as a way of life aimed at living well, and how, as James Luther Adams says, we are all prophets and priests for our UU beloved community. Today, I'd like to get personal and reveal a bit about how these previous meditations were born out of my own struggle to live well. I say struggle because, in fact, this living well business is not easy. At least for me, it's not, or it hasn't been. And you know what? I've studied wisdom traditions from across the world, from different time periods in wildly different cultural contexts. I devoted decades of my life to this study and what we might call field research. And as far as I can tell, the world's wisdom traditions seem to agree on very few things. What they all hold in common is this: they are the responses to the universal fact that the art of living well is challenging. But my meditation today is not titled "Living Well is really, really gosh darn it hard." No. Today I'm excited to discuss 3 reasons why I am a Unitarian Universalist. Excuse me. And you know what? I celebrate the beautiful mess of a Unitarian Universalist that I am. How I have responded to genuine challenges to living well have, in fact, brought me here to you and to ministry for our beloved community. Kindred spirits, the 3 reasons why I'm a Unitarian Universalist emerge above all else from lessons of love and pluralism. And if anything I offer today sticks with you, my hope is that it is this: Unitarian Universalism's wisdom is grounded in love and pluralism, pluralistic love and loving pluralism. Reason 1. When I was 15 years old, my Methodist aunt and uncle gave me a Christian Bible for my birthday. My first thought was, well, this is a crappy gift. My second thought was, well, no, that would be a lie. My second thought was, well, this is a crappy gift. My third thought, now let's just fast forward to my concluding thought. My concluding thought was, you know, the Bible is an important piece of literature. I should probably read it. I didn't grow up in a religious household, so what came next must have been divinely inspired. I promised God, a God that I did not yet know, that I would read the Bible from cover to cover, every single word. And I did. In 8th grade, I read the Bible from cover to cover, every single word from Genesis to the Revelation to John. Along the way, I entered what I now call my super Christian phase. Among other things, what I learned was that Jesus was the human embodiment of a badass God of love. Jesus was the Christ, a radical activist with a total commitment to the loving liberation of everyone. With that life lesson burning in my heart, in 8th grade, I promised God that when I got a car, I'd start going to church. Now, here's a freebie from a friendly seminarian, kindred spirits. If you promise God something and it has a big gift attached, you might have to live with unintended consequences. I'm just saying. So when I turned 16, my parents gave me the family's full-size station wagon, a 1985 Chevy Caprice Classic. I named it Mortis. We'd recently moved to a far-flung suburb of Atlanta, and there was a Methodist church not far from my neighborhood. So I began religiously attending Johns Creek United Methodist Church. In short order, I signed up for a year-long adult Bible study group, fittingly called Disciple. Now, at the end of the year, my Disciple group voted me most likely to become a pastor. What came next kind of ruined those plans, at least initially. Remember the Book of Mistakes from A Time for All Ages from about a month ago? Unbeknownst to me, I was about to spill ink all over the page in my life devoted to Methodist discipleship. I made an appointment with my pastor to talk about an important theological issue I was wrestling with. I told him that I had a Jewish friend. My friend Josh, a Jew, hadn't and wasn't going to accept Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior. Now, given that God is a loving God, what would become of him in the afterlife, I wanted to know. I'll never forget it. My pastor said, "Your friend Josh has made an eternal decision." To be clear, that meant eternal hell for Josh. We wrangled and wrestled over some key theological points. And then I concluded, carpe diem, seize the day. I knew my life was about to change dramatically and forever. I said, well, in that case, I hereby denounce Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. My pastor blanched and muttered, "You can't possibly mean that." I replied, "Yes, my God is a God of love. I denounce this Christ that isn't really all that salvific or loving." Thus ended my trajectory for becoming a Methodist pastor. But my journey toward becoming a Unitarian Universalist minister devoted to religious pluralism was just getting started. Like Nikolai in The Three Questions, I was on an extraordinary journey to find fundamental answers, driven by more and more challenging questions. My Jesus the Christ went with me, or more accurately, my loving liberator, but incognito, and Jesus took a supporting role to other divinities I would discover. Reason number 2. In 1997, I apprenticed to a mixed-blood Lakota woman steeped in both indigenous wisdom traditions and the Western mystery schools, or Western ceremonial magic. In early years of my apprenticeship with my adopted grandmother, I began a commitment to 4 years of Lakota Amblecha ceremonies. Amblecha in Lakota means crying for a vision for the people. Traditionally, the Amblecha involves a year of preparation, culminating in a days-long ceremony. During the days-long ceremony, the practitioner fasts, beginning the process in a sweat lodge, then spends a day or more in a tiny ritual area, praying, 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 and crying for a vision for the people. And then the ritual is completed once again with the sweat lodge. As I understand it, the Amblecha is not primarily a rite of passage for the practitioner. It's an act of service for the community, crying for a vision for the people. So, at the end of my first year of ritual preparation, I spent a day and a half on a lava flow northeast of Flagstaff, Arizona, with nothing but my birthday suit, my sacred pipe for prayer, and with thousands of prayer ties I had prepared surrounding me. One of my elders said that prayer ties were like runway lights for the spirits. I really like that. Year one was a relatively traditional Lakota Amblecha, at least as traditional as it could be for a white man with no Lakota heritage, performing a Lakota ceremony in the traditional lands of the Diné, the Navajo, in the flight path of the gods of the Hopi, the Kachinas, in the desert on an ancient lava flow. Year two was when things got wonky. Our ceremonial area in the desert grasslands near Sunset Crater National Park was in severe drought conditions. That meant we couldn't have a sweat lodge because we couldn't have a fire. And if we couldn't have a sweat lodge, we couldn't do an Amblecha. My grandmother and I went into deep discernment prayer. What came to her was that we had made a commitment and we needed to honor that. And I agreed. We needed to adapt religiously, spiritually, culturally. We needed to listen to the spirits of the place, the land, and it wanted water. And so we kept our promise, but we used a Congolese framework for the Lakota ceremony. This time, I would spend a day and a half on the lava flow, praying, praying, praying. But this time I poured libations of water for the spirits, for the gods. I was crying for a vision for the people, but our ceremony was new. It was time of we becoming. Our love for our wisdom traditions, our love for the land, our love for the people, our love of the gods required ceremonial innovation. So we continued. Year one had been fire. Year two had become water. Year three was air, and year four was earth. In year three, the trickster spirits were present in full force in every single sacred normal breath. A day into praying, 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 I really wondered if we could just call it a wrap. Sometimes the extraordinary endeavor of sitting with the gods is drudgery. I earned and learned the vital lesson that every normal breath and bodily function is sacred, that we are miraculous in our ordinary everydayness. In the fourth year, Earth, I dug a pit where the sweat lodge had been, and I spent a day and a half in the ground, in the dark, in my own grave, praying, praying, praying. We can change. I crawled out of that pit reborn, a new person. Today I realized that time of we becoming was a very you response to the limitations of tradition. I have cried for a vision for you, my people. There are many ways to honor the divine, to participate in the unfolding of the holy mysteries. My grandmother and I, in order to fulfill our promises to the gods, had to adapt in faith, in love, with change. We had to love our gods and our guidance more than we loved tradition. As Marge Piercy concludes The Art of Blessing the Day, her poem grounded in Jewish wisdom, bless whatever you can with eyes and hands and tongue. If you can't bless it, get ready to make it new. I cried for a vision for the people, and in doing so, I found wisdom in embracing adaptation for pluralism, diversity, the many ways of the art of living well. Reason 3. In 1993, my junior year as an undergraduate, I took a philosophy of religion class. In that course, I learned about the so-called problem of religious pluralism. In a nutshell, here's the philosophical problem, and it's a doozy. Bear with me. How can we rationally make sense of the fact that there is a wide variety of wisdom traditions, the world's religions, but also various forms of atheism and religious humanism, all claiming to be right about the nature of reality, of the divine, the cosmos, and our rightful place within it? I mean, who's right? Taoists, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, indigenous peoples, atheists? And within those wisdom traditions, which particular group of people can lay claim to the truth, capital T, capital T? Is there an afterlife? If so, what's it like? What is the correct path, capital C, capital P, if there is one? If I don't follow the correct path, does something bad happen to me? These were my questions. Since sitting at my Methodist pastor's desk, those more or less have remained my questions. I went to do a master's degree, and my thesis dealt with the problem of religious pluralism. I went on to do a PhD, and my dissertation dealt with the problem of religious pluralism. Can it make sense for me to embrace multiple wisdom traditions that largely conflict with one another? Rationally, does it make any sense for me to be me? My current conclusion is yes, but more questions. Unitarian Universalism is a religion of religious pluralism, and it is my rightful home. Unitarian Universalism says yes, with love, to people like me, to people like you, all of you. And I still struggle with the problem of religious pluralism. The questions of religious pluralism are still my questions. Our Unitarian Universalist beloved community gravitates around love, with pluralism as one of its guiding values. Honestly, I think our community has a lot of work to do to make sense of our own pluralism. I've devoted my life to religious pluralism, and I can't think of a more fitting wisdom tradition to serve and draw upon in my struggle to make sense of things. To wrap up my meditation, I want to thank you all for supporting me as a community as I continue my path toward UU ministry, prophethood, and priesthood. I've never felt more home in a religious community of kindred spirits, of prophets and priests devoted to the art of living well. And that's saying something. Love and pluralism are truly blessings we all share with one another as Unitarian Universalists. Love and pluralism are truly blessings we share with all of our relations. May it forever be so.
Our last song is number 175. It's one that we're not familiar with, so you might want to look in the hymnal if you want to sing along. Mary's going to play along, and I guess,
I'll play it through one.
and then I don't know what's happening. Then we'll play the video.
You're not going to play, oh, okay. I don't know, because the video comes, it only has the music with it, right?
It has singing and words, but doesn't have the notes.
Oh, yeah. We want those. Go, Mary. Can you handle this? Mary playing, or are we doing the video? Are you playing, or are we doing? I'll play. You'll play, okay. Okay? Yeah.
I would like to invite all of you in a collective awe at the end of the dedication of merit. May all the benefits of this act and all acts be dedicated unto the complete liberation and the supreme enlightenment of all beings everywhere, pervading space and time, so mote it be. May the benefits of practice, ours and others, come to fruition ultimately and immediately, and we remain in the state of presence.
Blessed people, go in peace.